Okay.
All right, Josiah, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Jen. Welcome all to the Next Gen Mentoring Forum. The Next Gen Mentoring Forum series is designed to empower, educate, and illuminate individuals who are interested in the financial planning industry. At each forum, an expert will discuss a topic in the field of financial planning with the purpose of inspiring critical thought and discussion. In today's session, Dr. Jen will interview industry's top financial coach, Saundra Davis, about how to use financial counseling and coaching skills to help your clients. My name is Josiah Gonzalez, Graduate Program Specialist of the School of Management. I am your host today. I am a proud CLU alum of the MPPA program at Cal Lutheran University. Dr. Chia-Li Chien is an assistant professor and director of the financial planning program at California Lutheran University. She maintains an active financial planning practice specialized in succession program management at the Value Growth Institute. She's authored 3 award-winning books, most recent peer-reviewed research book published by Palgrave Macmillan, titled Enhancing Retirement Success Rates in the United States, Leveraging Reverse Mortgages, Delaying Social Security, and Exploring Continuous Work. The Next Gen Mentoring Forum is sponsored by California Lutheran University School of Management Financial Planning Program. We offer an MBA in financial planning that helps financial advisors pursue a leadership position or grow their financial planning practice by deploying advanced financial planning, effective client communication/counseling, streamlined practice management, as well as leverage fintech. I will turn it over to Dr. Jen. Dr. Jen?
Thank you, Josiah. And it's such a great honor for me to interview Saundra Davis today. She is the Executive Director of Sage Financial Solutions. Saundra is a U.S. Navy veteran, financial coach, educator, and consultant who is nationally recognized as an expert in financial coaching field and her work with community-based organizations. Ms. Davis is the founder and executive director of Sage Financial Solutions, a San Francisco Bay Area-based organization that develops comprehensive financial capability programs for low and moderate income communities throughout the U.S. She developed, facilitates the Financial Fitness Coach Certification Program to promote the highest standard for professional services for all people, irrespective of wealth and income. As a financial behavioral specialist, her philosophy of the financial wealth continuum of care has shaped the financial coaching efforts around the country. Saundra holds the Master of Science in Financial Planning from Golden Gate University, where she is currently a distinguished adjunct professor in the Personal Financial Planning program. So Saundra, very much welcome you here. I'm going to stop sharing the screen so then we can actually see each other for that.
There we are.
Yeah, you and I have crossed paths so many times in the past, right? I remember maybe a decade ago or so that we both were involved in the Financial Planning Association's pro bono activities, both on a local level as well as on a national level. And then we just kept running into each other on various different conferences. So for the benefits of, for those participants who really don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so it's so good to see you. It's always great to spend time with you. And yes, we've had some very long and windy roads to get where we are today. So one of the things that I think it's important for people to know about me is that prior to becoming a financial planner, I spent 20 years in the nonprofit sector. So I was always doing very much community-focused work. So it was always around dealing with situations or people who were disenfranchised in one way or another. And the thing that I realized then when I decided to come into this field was that we were doing a lot of amazing work. You know, we're helping people get houses and helping people go to college and get jobs and start businesses. And then you would find that they would end up coming back, right? They'd come back. So they'd get help and then they'd come back. And that would be great if it weren't the fact that they were coming back because something had went wrong, right? So
Right.
maybe the home was foreclosed on, or they ended up deep in student debt without benefit of the degree that they had thought that they were going to end up with, or, you know, their business didn't quite do what they thought that it would do. And so what happened for me is that I discovered very early that unless we help people with their financial choices and really being able to take control of their financial situation, irrespective of what was going on, right? So a lot of folks, they're disenfranchised for a reason: lack of access, racism, structural problems that create barriers to people actually being able to do the things that they wanted to do with their lives. And so with financial planning, what became really clear to me was that we really can help people overcome those things, right? They shouldn't have to overcome them, but in order to make it, how do we help them overcome them? And so I tell people all the time, I've never been in the business of helping poor people be more comfortable being poor, which is why in the pro bono work that we did together, it was very important to me that financial planners understood we have to bring excellence to people wherever they are and whatever stage they're in their financial lives. So for the past 15 years now, this is my 15th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. For 15 years, I have been working very diligently to help people build their financial understanding, their financial awareness, not only of the content, understanding the financial topics, but understanding their behavior and what helps them move toward a healthy financial life, however they define that.
And I think that there are a couple of things that you mentioned that is quite obvious that many of us don't notice, and that is that we're not in the business of making people more poor, right? And they are family that obviously we are in the pleasure of serving such a high net worth, but at the same time, they are a group of people who desperately need help as well. And I think overall in the financial planning industry or financial services industry in general, the way the business model is set up really prohibited some of the advisors who was willing to do this kind of work, but they didn't know how to go about doing that. So a couple of things that I figured let's get started by asking you some questions. I oftentimes, so there are three things that you pointed out, and I think that's critical. One is financial coaching. The other one is financial counseling. And the last one is financial behavior. So let's talk about one at a time.
Okay.
Tell us, what is the coaching and the counseling? What is the difference between coaching and counseling?
Yeah, so if I can, let me just kind of frame it in this idea of the financial health continuum. So this idea started to bubble up for me back in like 2007 when I had started coaching and was training people to be coaches. And I would often hear people say coaching versus counseling. It's this or that. And they begin to start to position one as better than the other. And that happened frequently because a lot of funding for community-based work was starting to prefer coaching, not for any other reason that it sounded sexier than counseling. And so there was really no basis for that notion that one was better than the other. And so I started to kind of develop what the concept of financial education, right? That transfer of knowledge, that fundamental understanding that we all have to be able to navigate our personal lives and then the markets, the economic system in this country better, right? So the financial education is that transfer of knowledge. And financial counseling is often and usually pretty directive. Like if you have a situation, I can help you fix that situation. And it might be credit counseling, it might be debt counseling, it might be basic budgeting. But it's really, in more often than not, it's to solve a specific issue that is going on. Financial coaching is more about what gets in the way between you doing what you say is important to you. So think of it this way. When there's a gap between what people know and what people do, that's when coaching is in that sweet spot. Right? So they might know better. They might have taken a class, they've done some financial education, and their counselor has even really helped them develop a great budget, right? And then they go back to their lives and nothing happens.
So is it safe to say that financial counseling tend to be you have a problem you need to fix, someone is going to hold your hand and fix it with you or for you. And where where coaching is really that we are really just like coaching you to learn some sort of new behavior.
Yes.
Where the client actually take full responsibility of getting things done. Is that the right analogy of looking at it?
It's a great analogy. I tell clients all the time, you're going to work harder than I do. So I don't build budgets. I don't do plans. I don't do any of that. They do all the work. I ask really great questions. And the questions that I ask are to help them figure out where do they want to be, what's important to them, and then what can they do to get there. But ultimately, the client is responsible for the action. And the fact is, even when you look at the entire continuum of, education, counseling, coaching, planning, and therapy, the fact is none of us can fix someone else's situation anyway. There's nothing that we're going to do. They have to do the work. The question is, are we supporting them in a way that we're acknowledging their power and their ability to do it, and then helping support them with gathering the information that they need, and then the accountability to take action. Now, I do want to say many counselors are using coaching skills. So it's not an either or, it's not a versus. There are a lot of counselors who use coaching skills all the time. There are a lot of planners and therapists who use coaching skills all the time. So I'm hoping that people don't begin to think of it as one is better than the other. Everything along that continuum is necessary because we never know what people need. I'm sure you've had clients who have paid you to do a financial plan and then they do nothing. And then it's a beautiful plan and it's got all the charts and the bells and whistles.
The most common story I tell people is that I can't convince my mother-in-law to delay taking Social Security. There you go. And I think that one thing that you point out that's crucial is that, so counseling, coaching, it's really a continuum of the overall services. But I wanted to circle back on something that you mentioned is really, really critical, and that is the ability to ask questions, right? Because coaching has a very element of how you ask certain questions is going to impact whether or not that client is going to own that certain items and actually do something about it. So share with us about, in terms of asking questions, how could each one of the planners out there or advisors out there improve their ability to ask the right questions?
Yeah, so one of the things I think is really important is that most of us who are financial experts, we take great pride in how much we know, right? We're good at this. We've studied, we've spent money to be good at it. And we like to have answers. We like to know not only answers, but the right answer. And so the challenge is often to be able to hold that back a bit. Not that you don't, if the client thinks that the light at the end of the tunnel is their path and it's a train, sure, you're going to tell them it's a train, right? But the point is to not put your knowledge and your information above their own expertise in their own life, because our clients know what gets in the way. We know what they should do for sure. I mean, if everybody did what we know we should do, we'd all be healthy and rich, right? But the gap between knowing and doing, and so what we can do in asking good questions is help that client recognize when they're getting in their own way, when their choices are not moving them in the direction of what matters most to them. And then the questions can also help when there are competing financial priorities. Say you're married and you both want the same thing ultimately, but your perspective on how to get there is very different. And so what asking good questions can do for counselors and coaches and planners is to be able to pose a question in a way that the client can bring their best thinking. And then when they bring their best thinking and you bring your best information in partnership with them, not usurping their own authority in their lives, but in partnership with them, they can then begin to see what their options are. So if you take someone who has had limiting beliefs, right? You know, my family's always struggled. There's never enough money. We're never going to be able to have the life that we want. So that's one perspective, right? And what asking good questions is, so tell me, that's one. I hear that. And I hear that that's your experience. I'm wondering what else is possible.
So I guess one of the things that you mentioned regarding about really kind of pause for a moment, not directly give the solution, right? Because our job is to kind of peel the onions of asking additional questions. But I guess if I were to compare physicians and certified financial planners, I think physicians are being trained to ask questions. They rarely tell you direct answer, but the certified financial planner, probably me the worst, that when someone asks something, I have an answer, I'm going to tell you. And I have to really force myself to pause for a moment. Last week, my daughter was asking something that she was kind of puzzled with.
Uh-huh.
And I told her this, and I said I'm going to do that myself, is that when someone asks me a question, I should hold it and count it to 7 before I say anything, because otherwise I will say the answer, but that's not the point of counseling or coaching, because ultimately we want the clients to do what I call the self-discovery path, right? They need to discover those options that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was wondering, how much of those that we can influence the client's behavior? So let's talk about behavior for a moment.
Yeah, so I'm not convinced that we do influence other people's behavior. I think that what we can do is we can help people connect deeply to the thing that they want to accomplish, and that we can help them recognize when what they're doing is headed down a road that's not their intended road. And then we can help them discover what are the things that they can do to get themselves or put themselves on track, and then kind of kick themselves back in on path when they go off, right? Because it happens to all of us. It might not happen to financial professionals around money, but every single one of us has one area in our life where we're just not doing the stuff that we know to do. And so when we think about it from that frame of reference, it's easy for us as financial professionals to say, well, yeah, but it's not this. I do these things. Well, that's great. That's not your thing. What is your thing? What is the thing that keeps you from being your best in other areas of your life? Because that's really all it is. The challenge is that, that's my breathing bell. The challenge is that
that sounds great.
Isn't it lovely? Isn't it lovely?
Yes.
Feel free to join me. Everybody in the room, feel free to join me when you hear the bell. So I guess I like for people to think of it this way. When you're clear about your vision and you know where you want to end up, and that's kind of what financial planners do when we're talking about discovery, right? The challenge is in financial planning, more often than not, discovery is about getting the details. Tell me where all of your retirement accounts are. Tell me where your money, tell me what you're doing. There might be so what is your vision? Where do you want to end up? But there's seldom a deep dive into the vision. Just that moment where that client can stop and think about, what does my life look like when I've got things exactly as I want it to be?
And I think that partially might be part of the training that we all received in the industry, right? Our job is to get the numbers, all figured out, but then
I'll figure it out and tell you what to do.
Right. But then the problem is that I ended up spending a lot more time to understand where clients are coming from. What's the reason that they're doing certain things?
Right.
And understand. And I'm not trying to change that sort of behavior, if you will. If someone who wants to do their own investment, go for it. I mean, we're not in the business of stopping people for doing something, but unless it's very dangerous.
Right.
But you're right. So that self-discovery, having a good open mind to dive a little bit deeper. And that will help in terms of the relationship that you have with your clients, and ultimately holding your clients accountable, so to speak, to do the right thing for themselves.
Right. And it's kind of what you said, right? You know, where doctors are trained to ask questions and financial planners are trained to give answers. But the fact is, and we all know this, I remember one of the first things that I learned when I took the survey class, right, in my master's program was the moment you print, because back then we printed plans, right? The moment, right? The moment you print your plan, it is obsolete. The moment you print it. The moment hot off the press, it is obsolete. And so the thing that we know is that the only one true financial planning answer is it depends. And what coaching, I mean, that's what's true. That's the only answer that is always correct, right? Because, you know, you can give me a plan and I go home and I get a $50,000 tax bill. Everything you and I just did together has got to adjust because now there's something new. And it's not that that's a bad thing, because what the financial plan does is it kind of gives us some guardrails, right? And as long as we bounce around in those guardrails, we're good. But what happens?
So is it safe to say that ultimately the goal for coaching and counseling and behavioral adjustment, ultimately that we are helping clients to make decision at some point by themselves? Is that the ultimate goal?
I believe so. And when we say by themselves, that doesn't mean without information from their planner. You know, I don't think that financial coaching or counseling excludes planning. I think it's absolutely the opposite. I think that what counseling and coaching can do is support the financial plan, and by definition, the planner and the client in building the action. I think one of the things where financial planning as a profession kind of fails miserably is in that notion of the implementation strategy. I think that once the plan is done and the client has a plan, if the planner is managing assets, they're managing that. But how many planners do you know that make sure that the client is staying on budget every year, and make sure that the client has bought all of the things that they need to buy for their plan to be what it's supposed to be, and that they're making sure that they're doing all of the ancillary things, you know, maximizing tax strategies and all? How many planners actually do that? And the difficulty is, I think that many financial planners also get very stressed out at the notion of accountability, because they're in service to the client.
Correct.
And so if you say to the client, well, hey, you know, I'm noticing that you're burning through that safe withdrawal rate, you know, what are we going to do about that? Right? I know very few financial planners who would dare say something like that to a client, because I think in one way they think the client might fire them. And I think that that's exactly what the client needs, is to know, but you have to do that up front. You can't ignore it all on the front end. And then at the end, the client's not following the plan. Like, hey, wait a minute. You know, you can't come back and penalize them for something that you didn't set up at the beginning. And that's what coaching and counseling does. Coaching and counseling, both in different ways maybe, but both really are very clear that if you do these things, you'll get where you want to go. Now, what is going to be our process for accountability as we go? Some people think that if you're coaching, the client will discover they don't need you. I think it's exactly the opposite. I think that when you're doing that and you're working with the client as you go together, they realize just how much they need you, and how much holding that mirror up and doing, whether it's an annual review or quarterly or whatever it is that you do, not only saying, okay, this is what the numbers look like, but what is it going to take for you to stay on track? Because the client knows what gets in the way. They know why they're overspending. They know why they're not doing the things that they've agreed to. Because, you know, when you give them the plan, they say, oh yeah, that looks great. You know, oh yeah, wonderful.
So
Oh, they love it. They love it. They write your checks, they pay you, all of that is great. You know, and that's one of the reasons that I love, I see Dominique is out here, Dominique Henderson. You know, he has a group that I think is really amazing. It's that Jumpstart Professional Development series that he does. And he helps people figure out, what should your role be? because not everybody should be a CFP. Some people,
Correct.
counseling is a good choice for them. Coaching is a good choice for them, or education. And so being able to take a look at what's the right choice for your personality. I am not good at planning. I'm just not. I don't like it. I don't enjoy the investments. I don't enjoy the tax. I don't want to know what the current tax laws are. I'm not interested in that. What I do want to know is that you care about what makes your heart beat fast, and that you can work with me to determine what steps you are ready, willing, and able to take, and that you and I will be partners in you taking those steps and leaning on me when you need something from me, but trusting yourself to do what you know is best for you.
And I think that that's so critical for any planners and advisors out there to understand what you are really, really good at and enjoy doing. But I think what's might be getting in the way would be that business models that typically in this industry might be very difficult to implement the counseling, the coaching into the practice. So if you don't mind that we segue a little bit of talking about, so how do one sort of a financial planner or a planner out there that would like to incorporate the counseling, the coaching as part of their business, what should somebody who wants to do that, where should they actually start?
Yeah, so I think two things about that. The first one is to really do that self-assessment. You know, what are you really good at? And you know, people are fortunate now. When I started, everybody looked at me like I was crazy. Oh, you'll never make a living doing financial planning for poor people. Let's just do this pro bono thing. And so that's how I ended up writing the first pro bono training for financial planners, because everybody thought the only way poor people were going to get financial planning was through pro bono efforts. And, you know, did I take a harder path? Sure. You know, I was broke for a long time. I struggled financially for a long time.
But we
after I joined
learned
this.
from that experience, right?
And so, but here's the thing. So what I did was I did a sliding scale. Now, Cheryl Garrett has, of course, you know, the GP Garrett Planning Network.
Right.
That wasn't getting a lot of traction back then. People weren't, you know, people were saying, oh, well, yeah, I like it. I like the concept, but I can't make a living. And Cheryl was saying back then, that's not true. You can make a living. You can make a living doing hourly financial planning. And so now, of course, we know that all of that is possible. So, you know, fast forward 15 years, now we know how to do it. The question becomes, what works best? I think some firms, they learn it themselves. So some practitioners, solo practitioners, they learn coaching skills. They learn how to manage, you know, that's why the AFC is such a good complement, right? So people who do the AFC and the CFP, it's such a good complement because they can address the personal finance needs of anyone, anywhere along the spectrum, from people who are dead broke to people who are really, really wealthy. And so that's one way you can be self-contained and do it all yourself. You can also collaborate and partner with someone. If you really love the plan and you just want to crank out that beautiful plan and then kick it over to somebody to help with the implementation, you can hire, you can partner, you can collaborate in many different ways to be able to do that. The key there is making sure that the counselor or the coach does not step out of their lane, right?
That's true.
I am not.
They have to stay in their lane.
Everybody's got to stay in their lane. I am not a financial planner. I am trained as one. I teach financial planners. I mentor financial planners. I do not personally do financial planning. So one of the reasons people feel comfortable referring their clients to me is that they know that I'm not competition for their work. Nor would I ever diminish or demean the importance of financial planning. I think everybody should have a comprehensive financial plan, irrespective of how much money you have. I think the less you have, the better your plan has to be. Right? Some people think that when you have less, you don't need as much. I don't think that that's true.
And I think that brings out a very good point where this industry tend to, and I'm speaking about, you know, maybe 20, 30 years ago when they bring on so many independent advisors. So we're trying to help people become a generalist.
Yes.
And then not knowing that, you know, what, for all kind of medical condition, you have specialists to go to. So does financial planning, right? So each one of the planners and advisors out there has that niche and has a specialty. If this is something, the coaching and the counseling is not something that you're willing to do, partner with somebody, right? You have a partnership that you refer clients back and forth. Or if you wanted to do this all by yourself, sure, go through the certification process, get yourself trained, and figure it out from a compliance perspective and how to get compliant approved to do things like that. So I think that the key message that I have been telling people is that you have to remember, you don't have to pick and choose, but you have to decide.
Yes.
Are you going to be a generalist, or are you going to be leverage the partnerships that's available out there for you? And I think that many people probably don't know that there's options.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the main aspects, is that people think there's only one way to do it. And, you know, if my career path does nothing else, I think that what it has done is taught people that you can make a living doing exactly what makes your heart beat fast.
That's
you know,
right.
I don't do anything that I don't want to do. I do zero work that I don't want to do.
Sounds very luxury, but it does.
It has its moments. Well, it has taken, you know, I would say it took me about 10 years. But here's the thing. People don't have the hurdles now that I had then. There are mentors now. There's me now. There are, you know, Dominique is doing his thing. You know, Cheryl, Garrett, you know, there are a lot of people who have things that just didn't exist when I was starting. And so what I think that people can do, and what I think is the greatest service that we can do for ourselves, is to take that personal inventory first. So all of my classes, whenever I teach, all of my students start with, who are you? You know, what are you doing?
You know, I guess when you ask that questions when you were younger, it's a lot easier to answer. As you get, like me, older, that it is harder to face that type of questions, right? It's not a test. People have to remember, this is not a test.
Right. And only you know the right answer.
Right.
Even if it were a test, only you know, right.
and it's really trying to figure out what makes you work passionately, right? And at the same time, you can still make a living for it.
Yes.
And so there's so many different ways. Let me switch gear for a moment. And I know Dominic is on the line, so I would love to have him talk a few seconds or minutes if possible. But let's talk a little bit about the certification process. I know that many people online today that wanted to find out. So what do people need to do? I know that at California Lutheran University, we just recently became the registered program
for the AFC.
AFC. Yeah. So we're very excited, and we're going to be jointly developing the course with you. So I'm very excited for that. And so walk us through, if someone who is interested of doing so, what should they do?
Yeah. So first of all, I think certification is crucial. And the reason for that is there are a whole bunch. I mean, right now we live in a situation where anyone who has ever paid a bill thinks they're a financial expert, you know, and I mean, I paid off my student loans in 6 months, and here's what you do. And, I am appreciative of the enthusiasm that people have about personal finance. I'm concerned that people think, because I did it, it now will work for you. I think, number one, that's a mistake. No two people have the same situation. And even if their situations are similar, I can't take off the shelf someone else's financial plan and apply it in my life and expect it to be a perfect fit. So, and the biggest thing, and it's so funny, someone was saying this to me the other day, that, there's so many people out there right now who are investment experts, and they're giving you tips. They got tips, and they want you to take the tips, and they're
especially
not
on the TVs. Time special.
Yes. And now it's like they're not talking about the tax implications.
No.
They're not talking about what happens to capital gains when you buy and sell.
Right.
They're not talking about it, and it's because they don't know. And so for me, the certification is crucial because we have got to be better as a profession. We have got to be excellent. And we've got to set a standard and hold that standard so that consumers know what they can expect from us. And not only with education, but in experience and in ethics. So I have a partnership with AFCP as well, which I'm sure you know.
That's right,
And so
yes.
I'm really excited to be, when I first joined this profession, I didn't even know there was an AFCPE, and they were around.
Right.
They've been around 30 years.
They have
And
it.
yeah, and I didn't even know they existed back then when I was spending $40,000 for a master's degree. But I think that what that offers, having that AFC, offers you the opportunity to not only understand the full financial life cycle, right? That which you get, the CFP course, right? You look at the full
Correct.
financial life cycle. The AFC also gives you understanding debt, really digging in deep in budgets. Because, when I went through the master's program, we did a cash flow statement, but we didn't dig deeply into budgets because they just don't do that for wealthy people, right? So now we understand.
Or even if you do it, it's not in that level of details, if
right.
you will.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the AFC does that, right? And so, and you understand credit, and you know how credit scores work, and you understand the home buying process. So you really have the opportunity to understand the entire life cycle. Of course, not the depth of the CFP, but definitely the breadth. You understand, as my dad used to say, from kiver to kiver, right? Beginning to end, what that financial life cycle is. So that's what the AFC will do for you. It also teaches the counseling skills.
Mm-hmm.
The coaching skills are going to focus more on, so in the financial fitness coach, we don't do financial content. You're expected to have your content when you come. Right. So the FFC, I created that in 2007, but it was a workshop. It was a workshop at that time. And what I was having to do was teach all the financial content and all the coaching content. I was exhausted. And so partnering with the AFCPE, what that allowed me to do was trust that they covered the content. All I have to do was work on the skills. And so that's completely a practicum style course. You practice, you record, there's mentor coaching, all of that. And then, of course, the CFP, where now we have cases, we have to do the cases, and we have to do a practicum in the CFP programs. So those certifications allow you not only to understand the content, but to understand the content in practice. And that's where things break down, right? I mean, the knowledge part is easy. Anybody can pick up a personal finance book and get information. The question becomes, how does that information live in my life? And that's something, no matter how good of a financial planner you are or how brilliant of an expert you are, you don't know why people don't do what they say they want to get where they want to go. And so back to your original question, can we influence behavior? Can we change behavior? I don't think we can change behavior. I don't know about you, but I have enough trouble changing my own behavior, let alone anyone else's. So when Saundra can get Saundra's behavior together, then I can start thinking about what I can do for other people.
Only if I can stop stress eating.
You and I both, right?
Maybe I'll have a solution.
No, exactly. But what I can do is support you in really looking at what are the obstacles and the opportunities, and what do you have to do to achieve what you say you want. Now, if I'm sitting with a client and their credit score is in the tank and they're not managing their money well, and their relationships are on the brink as a result of family distress around money, my focus is going to be, tell me what you can do right now to feel a sense of direction about what you want your life to look like. So that's going to be where I start, where a counselor might say, let's get a grip on this cash flow. Neither one of those is wrong or right. Right? It's what is that individual who's sitting with you, or as it now, who's Zooming with you, what does that individual need to be able to get on the path? And then the coaching helps them to stay on the path.
And I think that's and first off, thank you for the years of establishing a framework for many of us who wanted to have this kind of skill set. and especially me, that I recognizing how lacking that I was in terms of asking the right questions and coaching the clients. But I do know that I have to hold them accountable. But without that proper training, it's hard. I know that at least for our master program, that for someone who is going through the CFP path, that they are also, by taking one more class with the financial counseling, they will qualify to sit for the AFC exam. So then they are properly trained. But I think that most of us will agree that from a true financial planning perspective, the CFPs oftentimes are very lacking in the debt portion of it. We know our own debt, but we don't know enough if someone who is living off debt. Right.
And there's a difference. And that's the point that you bring up, I think, is so crucial, because the CFP program, and it's not to knock it, it's a wonderful program, as we know. It treats debt as what it was designed to be, leverage for wealth building.
Correct.
What the AFC, though, does is say, okay, how is debt fitting into your life? And are you using it, like you say, to live on? And if so, what adjustments might you need to make? So, it's a different perspective. And for me, the thing that's so exciting about doing the AFC at Cal Lutheran now is that being able to take it as a course allows you to, anybody can go to the AFCPE website and log in and, buy the course and get the books and do a self-study. They have wonderful webinars and those kinds of things. The difference of taking it at a university, though, is that you get to interact with the information in real time. You're talking with your fellow students about it. You're hearing from your professors about it. And, most folks who take a class from me end up having to work with a client. So I haven't talked about that part yet. So they actually have to do
we have
a practical.
talked about that to be, factored into the course itself. So that's to be continued.
Because that's so important, right? It's one thing to read something and know it. Just like you, you're an amazing CFP. And the fact that you're transparent enough to say, I didn't really know that I needed to ask questions differently. And now I know better. And so now, but here's the fact. As we know, when we're talking with clients and their money, knowing better does not mean doing better. We can have people who know and don't do, but the thing is, they can't do better if they don't know better. So as a counselor or coach, we're helping them know better and then do better.
And so for someone who, and this might be where Dominic can chime in if you're willing to, for someone who has a practice, whether or not they're on the path to go on to the CFP or on the path for something else, what would you recommend? Hi, Dominic. Very nice to meet you. I heard a lot about you. So what would someone actually need to do to get started?
And the question again, I'm sorry.
If someone already in the business wanted to have something to do with the counseling and coaching, perhaps if they're on the way to get their CFP, what would you recommend them to do? Understanding there's several different type of business models.
Yeah, I know. And I think you guys only have like 17 more minutes left. So I think at a high level, the person really needs to understand what they want to do. I always say, start with your why, which inevitably introduces you to the who, maybe a mentor or a coach, which then gives you the how. Because you can imitate, just like everyone learned how to ride a bike by looking at somebody else or tie their shoes by looking at somebody else. I think it's no different here, where you need to find someone that you aspire to, or that's doing something similar to what your, maybe your passion is or your skill set is. And then going down that path. Going at it alone typically is the hard way, as we can all probably attest to. I would strongly recommend in getting into groups like, FPA or Quad A, trade and professional organizations. FPA has 80 chapters. I have a free community that I try to virtually mentor and coach as much as I can. So I think finding, pockets like that inside the industry are some of the best ways to find out where you're going to be in your highest best use, or find your superpower, as I would say.
I love that you combined mentor and coach into merch. That I thought that was really good. I think
so that's a new word.
I think merch worked. I liked it. I liked it.
Okay, I like that.
Mentor
really
coach.
cool.
I'm a merch. Right?
Coining phrases is part of what I do. Yes.
But the reason that I like that you invited Dominique into the conversation is that I often get questions that, where do I start? What do I do? Because to take all of these courses and to do what we're saying is necessary to be effective is an investment. It's an investment in yourself and an investment in your business model. And so being able to be in a community where you can learn from each other, I only have so much time that I can offer to people. And of course, everybody wants one-on-one time with me. And I just can no longer do that. So teaching at Cal Lutheran is going to be a way for me to be able to support, love that bell, support the students in creating the pathway that is satisfying. I can't tell you the number of people that I had teaching at Golden Gate who started out in 420, the survey class, who by the end of the survey class are like, this really isn't for me. Had I known then what I know now, the AFC would have been perfect for them.
Right.
I hadn't built the FFC yet, but the AFC would have been perfect for them. And then Dominique, one of the things that I appreciate about what he does is that he doesn't assume everyone is going to be a financial planner or an advisor. They might be an educator, they might be a counselor, they might be a coach. And there are just so many ways that we can make a living now that I think we might have even been discouraged from before. I know folks who joined the AFC, there are some like the CFPB, that project that I did, they required the AFC and the FFC. So getting that AFC opens up job opportunities that, maybe we didn't even know existed, 10 years ago.
And I know that even on the federal or military levels, that there are people who dedicated to service the servicemen and women on the financial area, and most of them are AFC. They may have CFP, but they definitely do have AFC or some other type of counseling certifications. So thank you, Dominic, for suggesting having that group type of environment to get more exposures and perhaps get some feedback from people who've been there, like you guys. we learn. I learn best from mistakes, I guess. But people don't have to do that, really, because you've have built that path, clearly helping more advisors, more planners to get on the bandwagon. Because at the end of the day, if you're really truly looking at the business models, it does make sense. You do want it to have some sort of different type of revenue coming in, but I do believe that implementation oftentimes at the end of the financial planning does get into the way of the coaching and counseling. So I do believe that we do need to have that mentioned very early on, so clients clearly know that there are two different type of services, or maybe three, that I don't know if Dominic or Saundra that you agree or not, but I do believe that clients need to know early on that there's separate type of services, separate purposes for doing such work.
Absolutely. And I don't know if Dominique wants to say anything about that, but I'll tee it up by saying it is unfair to the client to change the expectation in the middle of the stream. So when I have my first conversation with a client to make sure that we're a good fit, I don't get a lot of information from them in the beginning. I get enough to understand whether or not I can meet their needs. And then I tell them, this is what it would be like to work with me. And I want them to know that, number one, I only work with folks who are ready to take action. I just don't have the time or the inclination to work with people who want something that sits on their desk. They have to be ready to take action, and because they're wasting their money and my time.
That's true.
And my time is really expensive now. I used to be,
Congratulations.
Thank you. I had a lot of broke years. where I was making $20 an hour. And I was a 50-year-old woman making $20 an hour, right? And so it is not that anymore. But the more important aspect is I don't want to waste my time or theirs. And this is why I also say to financial planners, you know, think of the notion of calling yourself a financial coach. Think of that notion in the context of not diminishing financial planning is so important. It is a crucial service, and to throttle it back, or I mean, I'm not saying that there's not a place for financial planning light. A lot of people are doing that and calling it coaching. That's fine, but comprehensive financial planning is imperative if people are going to move from where they are to where they want to be, particularly low and moderate income people. People who already have tons of money, you know, will it affect them in the same way? Maybe, maybe not. But for people who have less, having a comprehensive financial plan can mean everything. It can mean everything, not only for them, but for the generations coming behind them. So as professionals, we have to be excellent. We have to have that FFC, AFC, CFP, and go into you know, universities that are reputable and are going to make sure that you not only know how to pass a test, but you understand how to pass the truest test of all is, are your clients being served, truly served? And I think that that's why this work is so important. And I love that Dominique has his free group that people can, you know, struggle. I struggled. You know, I just struggled, and there wasn't anybody. You know, I was fortunate that, you know, folks like you and, you know, I could lean on you all about what is possible, but there was nobody other than Luis Barajas. Luis Barajas was the only person who felt my struggle, you know, because he had
he's
some
in
of
the
that.
Southern California area.
Exactly. And so, you know, he understood what it was like to do planning for poor people.
Right.
So
And
yeah, I think this is
devoted his entire career just to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, these are exciting times. You know,
Yeah.
for the folks entering the program, you know, you really do get to create your own magic. You know,
You're right. Years and years ago, this is not an option that you can consider. But today, there's so many different options, and definitely teaming up with expert like you and Dominic, there's the potential is really unlimited in this case. We are just right around the corner of finishing up, so I do have to kind of get moving with this. And so, Dominic, if it's all possible, I'm going to reach out to you, get your contact information, and I'm going to put Saundra and Dominic's information on our blog website. Once we get the recording, we'll have them there. So for those folks who are interested about Dominic's free group or even FPA's group, you have a place that you can at least contact. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor back to Josiah. So thank you, Saundra, and thank you, Dominic, for such a wonderful conversation. I definitely will do this one more time, or at least more times, because I think that there's a lot more that we haven't touched on. We just barely touch on the stuff that we need to talk about today, but we'll definitely talk more in the future session. So Josiah, I'm going to turn the floor back to you.
Dr. Davis and everyone else.
Josiah, I think that you are having some internet connection issue. You want to try it one more time? I can hear you, but it's just kind of on and off.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks again, Dr. Jen. I'm so glad to have you both for today's mentoring for the California University.
Okay, let me read the rest of the materials. It sounds like you're having some internet connection issues. So thank you, Saundra, and thank you, Dominic. And
thank you so much.
We're so glad to have you today for our Next Gen Mentoring Forum. And thank you for California Lutheran University School of Management Financial Planning Program for sponsoring today's session. And here, I just wanted to quickly remind everyone that at California Lutheran University School of Management, we do offer Master of Business Administration as well as Master of Science in Financial Planning, helps planners or advisors pursue a leadership position or growing their financial planning practice by deploying advanced financial planning, effective client communication, counseling, streamline practice management as well as leveraging fintech. So please sign up for our upcoming info session if you wanted to learn more about the master program. Our next webinar, I have the honor to interview Ms. Carrie Backstrom, who is the expert in communicator, on September the 18th, 1 p.m. Pacific time, about the topic of how to use effective communication to lead clients. So I hope to see you all very soon. Until next time, everyone, stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Thank you.